It's hit and miss, right? But that's why you're here. Two more minutes. Come on, man. It was just 3 minutes, 3 minutes ago. Zero? Oh, I'm getting a bunch of thumbs up, being told zero, so I guess we're good. All right, welcome everyone to the Cisco U Theater. My name is Palmer Sample. I'm a developer advocate here with Cisco Learning and Certifications on the Cisco Training Boot Camps team. So we focus on automation and programmability. We have a number of offerings, ACI, Enterprise Networking, Meraki, NSO. We cover the whole gambit of automation. And I'm hoping that you are here today to talk a little bit about Ansible. Does anyone here currently use Ansible? Anyone thinking about it? How many of you are here because you see Ansible and you've seen it in the study guide and you say, okay, cool, what is this? We've all been there. Okay. All right, so we're going to go through a little bit about Ansible. I'm going to give you some background. I have a lot of slides here. There might be one more after this. We're going to talk a little bit about Ansible, what it's for, how you can use it, and then we're actually going to create an inventory and a playbook. So this is about demystifying Ansible, right? A lot of times, new technologies, all of these different automation tools come out, and it's like, oh, this is great, and I've heard about this. What does this do? Or I've seen it on the blueprint, but what do I need to know? What can this possibly do for me? Okay. So Ansible is a configuration management tool. Okay, configuration management. What can we do with configuration management? Change things on a device, maybe get data from a device. But remember, Ansible was originally created to interact with hosts, pardon me, to interact with servers, right? Linux systems, things like that. So when I was speaking up before the audio came in, I was saying, where are my infrastructure engineers, the people that also work on VMs or maybe ESXi, or pardon me, vSphere, things like that. Ansible is not just tied to networking. You can use it for other things. And it seems very daunting because it introduces a lot of new concepts. You're going to have to learn about this file format called YAML. Hands up, anyone ever used YAML or heard of it? Ish, kind of? Okay, YAML, all it is just a way to represent data structures in a text file. And it's indentation based. And that if you can understand a little bit about YAML and learn some YAML, then Ansible you're going to see is easy. All you're doing is typing. You're defining what tasks to execute in the order in which to execute them. So there are a couple of, we'll get there. There are a couple of things that we need to be able to use Ansible. Number one, we need Python installed. Well, I guess you can run it as a container. You can download the Ansible container and run it, image, and launch a container running Ansible. But it is written in Python. It is Python based. Ansible, it's Python based. It uses some Python constructs, but think of it as an abstraction layer for Python. So we define what we want to do in Ansible. Ansible handles all of the translation and runs the code for us. So it's you can almost think of it sometimes as a bridge between, no automation and, full pipelines. Now you can use Ansible in pipelines. Don't get me wrong. You can do all kinds of magic things with it. But I like it myself because it is fast. I can create something very, very quickly. It's easy to use, and the documentation is simple. In fact, I may have to refer to the documentation when we create our first playbook. But we have Ansible, we have Python. We installed Ansible using the Python pip command. And then, okay, that's great. We have this. Now what? We need to define an inventory. An inventory, when I say inventory, all I mean is we need to tell Ansible, here are the things on my network. Here are the devices. Here's how to connect to them. IP address, credentials. All we're doing is just defining how to connect to the things on my network. And you can use plugins, like if you're using something like Netbox or a Source of Truth, you can use those for your inventory. You can create dynamic inventory. You can tie it in, but we don't need to worry about that. You know, we're working on maybe on your CCNA or on your ENCOR exam. We need our inventory file. Once we have that, we can begin creating a playbook. What is a playbook? A playbook is nothing more than a text file that defines what to execute. And I said a few minutes ago, we have to tell it the order in which to execute. If I put things in the wrong order in a playbook, it's just like if I'm copying and pasting, you know, my old automation method as a network engineer, copy and paste. If I copy and paste things in the wrong order, I'm going to get unpredictable results, or it may not work. So exact same thing with Ansible. We have to put things in the order to perform. And then we run the playbook. So let's see how our connectivity is. Oops, that is the wrong file. Here in a moment, I'm going to start typing. If it is too small, might drop my pen too. If it is too small, just let me know. I can increase it. It's hard to tell up here. We are going to create our inventory. Right now, I have a Catalyst 8000 Edge virtual running in the cloud provider. So we can actually interact with a network device right now. If I do it right, I might even be able to knock it offline, so I have to rebuild it. But we are going to create that inventory file. And I told you, this is where we define what we're going to connect to. When we start off, YAML. This is a document separator, those 3 dashes. You do not have to have that in there, but it's part of the standard. When we create our inventory, you see how I typed in a word with a colon. Has anyone here used Python dictionaries? A couple of hands going up. Think of this as a key value. So we have a key. In this case, the key name is all. And that colon says whatever's after this is going to be a value. Okay, so our key is all. That's how we start our inventory. I'm going to create my first host. I'm going to go ahead and create my first router. So we need to define our hosts. Now, you notice how it indented? Came all. Host is indented. So our first value under all is host. That's another key. So we're building a nested dictionary of keys. All hosts. Underneath of hosts, this is where we define each one of our hosts. Here, I'm going to call this router 2. Okay, router 2. How could I get to router 2 if I'm not running DNS? This is a common problem, right? Sometimes you have a host name, or maybe I want to call something an asset number or an asset tag, but maybe I need to go through a jump box and I need to use a different IP or a different host name. I can define that using this special variable called Ansible host. And here I could put an IP address, host name, whatever. So let's go ahead and put the host name. Pod 2 router. All right, I've got my first host defined. Almost there, right? We need credentials. And in my case, I need a port because I'm going through a proxy. So I'm going to say Ansible. You notice one thing here? Most of these things start with the keyword Ansible. Okay, our inventory, these are reserved. These are special keywords inside of Ansible. They're listed in your inventory documentation. But no, host is how we define where to get there. Port is our SSH port. Let's see. I'm going to do Ansible user. This is highly secure. Developer. We're going to look at, here in a few minutes, we'll look at a way to make this a little bit more secure with our credentials. But for right now, I'm going to type my credentials, and you can see why you may not want to commit this into your Git repository after you build out your full inventory in this state. So we'll say Ansible password. Highly secure. Cisco 12345 CL. All right, we have our username, our password, our host, and our port. We can actually get there. But now I need another little bit of a special sauce. Why? Remember I said Ansible was created for interacting with Linux hosts, managing servers, managing hosts. I need to tell it, no, this is actually a network device. It's not a host. You need to load the proper stuff to handle connections to network devices. So I'm going to say Ansible connection. Here we're going to say, whoops. Yes, it is Ansible. Actually, we can just say a network _ CLI. So what that does, that tells Ansible, load this plugin to be able to translate what I'm putting in the playbook to network CLI commands. But what kind of network CLI? I mean, we know that there is one networking provider, right? That's Cisco, one vendor. But just in case, whoops, it is amazing how I can mistype that every single time I get up here. And it's going to be Ansible Network OS. These two I usually have to look because when I create my playbooks, then I save them, I modify them. So I don't, or my inventory, I don't change my connection to Network OS very often. But we can say iOS. Okay, we have our connection, we have our network operating system. Now Ansible knows when I connect to this device, I am interacting with an iOS-based device. That's it. That's your inventory. That's all that there is to it to be able to create an inventory. But I'm going to, I don't really just want to say all. I don't always want to create, connect to every single device in my inventory. I'm going to create a group. Let's create a group called Cisco Live. How do we create a group? We've defined the hosts. Remember, all, if I targeted all, that's going to connect to every single device. But we can group things. And how we do that, we create children. Children of all. Okay, so think about it. Here's the whole world. Okay, let's make a child group inside of that whole world. And all we have to do to create a group is, what did we say the group name was going to be? Cisco Live? Cisco Live. Okay, I just created a group called Cisco Live. I need to do something. I need to add a host to my group. We're going to do almost the exact same thing we just did, which is here we say hosts. So you see what happened here. Under this host, we can have router 2 through router 50. But in this group, Cisco Live, we're going to put router 2 in there. I've already defined router 2 up here. So I don't have to put all of that down here again. If I want to reference router 2 under host, all I have to do is type router 2. And I put the colon here because remember, this is a key value pair. Router 2 is the key, and here's our value. It's the value is a dictionary. So router 2 is the key. We're just saying router 2 is in this host or in this group, Cisco Live. That's our inventory. We can now interact with that router using the group name Cisco Live. But how do we define? Where do we start? We've got an inventory. This is really cool. This is useful. It does nothing, but it looks cool. Let's create our first playbook. And remember, playbook. When we create a playbook, What we're going to do is we're going to use Ansible modules. And these are from the Cisco.ios collection. Now, Ansible there weren't that many modules, so you could just say like iOS hostname or, hostname, something like that. But of course, as the popularity of automation has exploded, more and more and more modules get added, so they started namespacing things. So instead of saying iOS hostname, now we prefix it with the namespace. And you'll see that in a moment. But what a module is, within that Cisco iOS namespace, any Ansible module, all it is, it's just a small program written in Python. Or there were probably others, but think of it as written in Python, small program. It does one thing. That's all it is. So if you take a look at the documentation, which is not there, if we look at the documentation for Ansible, this is the Cisco iOS, the current modules available. Let me zoom that in one more. So each one of these, iOS ACLs, iOS Banner, iOS BGP, each one of those modules is nothing more than a small script that is designed to do that one task and that one task well. When you create your playbook, you're just telling it, use these modules, run these small programs in this order. That's all you're doing. We're going to type in the wrong section. We're going to give our playbook a name, just so that we can identify it. It's going to make sense when we run it. Let's just call this Cisco U. We need to target, we need to, I guess target is an acceptable word, target the proper host, or in this case, the group. So I'm going to say hosts. You've seen that before. Are you noticing something? A lot of the same words, a lot of the same keys, a lot of the same things you see over and over and over, right? Once you start using Ansible and start, the more times you do this, then it's just going to become second nature. Oh yeah, host here, Ansible _ something. That's some kind of a built-in keyword. So there are a few things that you'll see repeatedly, but it's just nothing more than a text file. And we're going to say Cisco Live was our group, correct? In our inventory? Okay, what have we done? Hosts, Cisco Live. Anything in that group, Cisco Live, we can now automate. Here, we can also do this, right? We could say all, but if I have a massive inventory, I don't want to do that. So splitting your inventory into groups helps you. Maybe you can do access routers, access switches, core switches, do it by site, by building. So then it's going to make it easier so that you can take one playbook and do the same exact task, no matter where, just by changing your inventory group that you are performing tasks against. We're going to say gather facts. What are facts? We're actually going to gather facts here in a minute, but at the top level, I'm going to say gather facts. I'm going to tell it false. Facts, Ansible facts. When Ansible connects to a device, then what it's going to try to do is learn about the device. Going back to the Linux example, how much disk space do you have? What is your storage utilization? How many drives are installed? What are what drives are mounted? What are their paths to those devices? A lot of times, I don't really care about that. It's good if you're working on host, but especially if you're using Ansible to automate something like a Cisco APIC or Catalyst Center, where it's using a REST API, there is nothing for you to gather there. It's just you're connecting to a REST API and you're consuming that API. It's not going to learn anything about the underlying device or the operating system. I say false, but we can get network information in just a moment. And I said that we need to, again, our playbook here, we're just defining modules, the order in which to execute. Tasks, that's how we started. When you see that tasks, that means anything below this is something to execute. So we've given it a name. We can identify what this playbook is for. We've targeted our host, the Cisco Live group. And we've said, don't try to connect and learn stuff that I don't care about. But now I maybe want to collect something that I do care about. I want to collect some information about the network device. And fortunately, we have a module for this. And depending on the exam, you may or may not have access to portions of documentation for a module or for a specific task in Ansible. If you have access to the documentation, then we can pull up the module. Let's take a look at the documentation. This is called iOS Facts. I want to learn facts about my iOS device. I'm going to scroll down. Parameters. I don't see anything listed here as required, but we can tell it if we say available network resources, true. Let's see here, a list of network resources for which resource modules are available. Gather network resources, it's a list. So we've got our arguments here, or our parameters that we can supply to this module. You can see network resources, valid subsets are BGP global, layer 3 interfaces, lag interfaces, NTP. I'm just going to gather all of the facts. And I'm going to use that with this parameter here, gather subset. Now, you do not need to memorize the Cisco iOS Facts module or the parameters. Just using this as an example that the documentation, if you have access to the exam, look for things that say required. Because if it says required, you better have that as an option or you're going to run into an error. We need to give our task a name, collect router information. And remember, I said namespacing. You do not have to do this. It still functions without it, but I get into the habit, if you can, of namespacing. Here it's cisco.ios facts. And then gather subset all. I want to learn everything that I can about the device. What happens? In fact, let's run our playbook. If I can make this a little bit bigger. Is that visible? Or people in the back, can you see the terminal there? Better now? That was at the bottom. Okay, let's say Ansible playbook. That's the command that we run, Ansible-playbook. All right, we're going to use Ansible to run a playbook. We need to give it the inventory file, so I'm going to use the -I option and tell it the name of the file that our inventory is in. Here it's called inventory.yaml. And then I need to tell it which playbook to run. What was it called? Main? Oh, playbook. Ah, yes, okay. So we tell it the inventory file. We have to have the inventory. And we have to provide the playbook to run. What is going to happen now? Maybe nothing. Oh, look, play. See, there's the name of our play. That's why we give it a name. At the top, it says Cisco U. Collect router information. Okay. Very, very useful network automation. For any of you, this code will be available for you to take home. It will print okay. Nah, that's no fun. Let's do something with that. What did that do? It said okay. It says it collected router information. I have okay. Well, there is another one of those. Remember, Ansible _ something. That's a reserved keyword, a special Ansible thing. There's something called Ansible _ facts. We can use that to access the facts that we gathered for our device. When we use, remember at the top I said we turned off gather facts. I said gather facts false. If that were true, Ansible facts would have this big, list of stuff. But since we said false, right now Ansible Facts is nothing. This iOS Facts module, and there are different Facts modules available depending on platforms or what you're interacting with, but these actually will append to the Ansible Facts. So if I gather the facts at the beginning, we have all the information about our host. We get like disk space, utilization, mounted volumes, all of this. And then I run this. This will append it. But let's take a look at what we gathered. What did this do besides just print OK? Let's say print the facts. Need some way to print. Oh, Ansible.built-in. Yes, remember I said namespaces, Cisco.ios. There are a lot of them under Ansible.something. In this case, Ansible.built-in. It comes with Ansible. Oh, by the way, this Cisco iOS, these modules, when I installed Ansible, these get installed. I did not do a core installation. I just typed pip install Ansible and walked away. So I'm going to use Ansible.built-in.debug. So I'm going to debug. I want to print a message. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say message. And here is where the fun stuff happens. What is this? Has anyone ever seen syntax like that with those double curly braces on it or around a word? A couple of people? Oh, okay. Yes, a few people. This is called Jinja 2. Jinja 2 is a templating engine for Python. Let me explain what I mean when I say templating engine. When I have to put these in quotes, by the way, quotation marks. Ansible needs that so it knows, hey, this is a string that I have to interpret. When I put these special indicators, these double curly braces, around a word, in this case, that word is Ansible Facts. Really what that word is a variable. Okay, great. What that variable does, though, when it's in those curly braces, everything here, all of that curly braces will get replaced by the value of that variable. Okay? So when you use this syntax, those double curly braces, all of that's going to disappear. It's not going to print out the word Ansible Facts to the screen. Well, maybe it will. Let's see what the difference is. I'm just going to run the playbook again. All I did was just leave it so it's quote. I did not put those special curly braces around it. Collecting the information. And, okay, look, it just says Ansible Facts. That's not what we wanted. We want to see what the facts are. So I am going to surround these. You do not have to put spaces before and after. It just makes it a lot easier to read when you're dealing with huge playbooks. Notice I just added those double curly braces again. Let's run it this time. Let's see what that Ansible Facts or the iOS Facts does for us and the Ansible Facts. Now we actually have something. See, that time it did not print Ansible Facts. It printed the entire content of that Ansible Facts variable. Look at what we collected. Okay, we've got some interface information, cloud private interface, net host name. All right, so we got a lot of, we have Cisco iOS XE, memory free. So we have a little bit of performance information here, serial number. So just by using that one module, we gathered all of this information about the device. What could I do? Well, you can do a lot of things with facts. But I know we're going to run short on time. I do want to show you one other module, just something to actually change a configuration on a device. But you can see here, like net model C8000V. If I wanted to write a playbook and say, hey, only target hosts if they're running, if it's a Catalyst 8000V running 17.8.1, I could reference these facts and say, okay, this one is 17.9.4a. I can get the major, Ansible major number and minor, something like that. But we can get this information and then tailor our playbooks and restrict them based on these facts. So we can use those as conditionals. Very useful. Let's do one more task. Let's say change the host name. Sorry. Could there be a module, something like iOS host name? Cisco iOS host name. Does it have any mandatory parameter? This one actually does not, because it will set the host name to the inventory name by default. However, parameters, config, the color is a little bit off. You might not be able to tell, but there's some indentation. So you see this config, it says dictionary. Host name is a string. There's some indentation here. So I know I need config and host name. So config is our parameter. Host name is the key that we're going to set the host name with. Let's do that. So let's say Cisco iOS host name config, right? And then host name was the parameter. How about Cisco Live? Why not? Cisco Live router. There we go. Let's take a look at our host. This is hopefully the correct device. If I can. Okay, it was called demo host. Let's run our playbook one more time with our example module just to change the host name. So we've got our Cisco U playbook running. We're still going to collect the iOS facts. Sometimes fact collection. The other reason I say false a lot of times, if I don't need those facts, as you see, it takes a little bit because it has to run a lot of commands. It has to query the device. And there are actually a couple of other modules that I wanted to get to, but time is running short. There are modules that we can execute arbitrary commands on a device, like show commands. And that one is called Cisco iOS command. Okay, well, this is the danger of I promise you the playbook is still running. Here, as a matter of fact, while that is not running or still running, let me just go through a couple of these. If I said that there's one that you can use to execute arbitrary commands on the device. One of them is iOS command. Cisco iOS command. Commands. And anytime you see that hyphen there, that's a list. That means this is a list of things to do. And I could add a whole bunch of commands. Here it's show IP interface brief. This keyword here, register. That means save the output of this module into a variable named this. Now I can access that interface output variable and get the information that I need. And then if you wanted to perform configuration on a device, there's one called iOS config. And here you just put the lines that you wanted to execute on the device. So if I wanted to configure, manually using CLI commands, I could do that there. And unfortunately, look, we have a lot of facts. It says it changed the host name. And it did. So host name is a very simple example, but all you need to remember is modules are small programs that Ansible can execute. When you check the docs, if you have those and you're taking a certification exam, look for those required parameters. And also check your indentation on your YAML. And if you want to talk more about YAML or Cisco U or Ansible, come and see me after this. I'm sorry I'm out of time. I have to get ready for the next speaker. So thank you all very much for coming, and enjoy Cisco Live.